Hi, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday. I can see Katie on my screen. So, Katie, could you shake your head or nod if you can hear me? Brilliant. Thank you. I always like to just do a double check. We did do a sound check beforehand, but it's good to know. So welcome back, those of you, vast majority online today. We've got a few people in the room here, which hopefully you can probably see. Heather is joining us online today, and I'm going to run through a few things, and then we'll introduce Heather and get her CFO talking about 2 or 3 minutes time. So as always, with the programme, let's have a quick look. So there's nothing major to recap on the last week, but we'll have a look at the competencies in a moment. And we're going to hear from Heather, do the usual Q&A, and breakout groups. If you've got any friends who are not here today, as per always, we'll record it, make sure it's distributed, because I appreciate over the next couple of weeks, there's probably more people that potentially might not be here because of holidays or just time with family and all those sorts of things. And then we'll come back to the breakout exercise, which is going to be a nice simple one today, and then come back for final thoughts at the end. So the usual format, relatively simple. So today's, just going to move this sort of screen. We're at utilize people. So today is really about how, as somebody's being enterprising or innovative, or if you're in a small business mode or a small enterprise mode or anything else, how do you actually get people to do things for you? How do you engage with people? How do you get to know people? And I'm not going to spoil it, but that's what Heather's going to talk about today. We are very, very lucky. Heather's one of our entrepreneurs in residence and is, I would say, probably a Jedi of manipulating or getting people to do her bidding or her will, or to engage with her and to get on board with her agenda, but I won't spoil it. So we put a couple of things in here. One was planning and management, thinking about how you do things. One's about taking the initiative. This is a bit of a theme you probably got in the enterprise program up until now. So last week we talked about, doing something that makes you feel uncertain, or doing something that makes you feel a bit risky, and getting used to it. And in motivation and perseverance, back in module 3, I think we talked about just getting on, and sometimes pushing on is more important than doing things perfect. And hopefully Heather will give you some insight into that today. Building a network. I don't actually know many people in the world that are designed to network. People think I am because I do it for my job, but I really don't like it. I genuinely don't. I've got a wife who's massively gregarious and she doesn't like it either, and she's really good at it. So I think just to say, actually, networking is something everyone has to work out, but it's something that's hugely valuable. You make contacts and everything else, and hopefully Heather will give you some insight into that today. And then from that, what leads to that trusted elements of the network, the people that are close to you, those collaborations that you can rely on. And all of this, we're framing today outside of the traditional business relationship where you'd have employees who obviously get paid and they do things for you and everything else. This is about your network, people around you, friends, colleagues, people you might just know within the business environment, or if you're in a particular sphere. So that's kind of the background to what Heather's going to talk today. And I think this is actually a really nice module, because this is probably where, if you're being enterprising inside an organization, or if you're starting your own business, loneliness is a real thing, feeling like you're the only person on the agenda, and finding, lots of people use the word tribe, but finding a tribe of people who actually can give you that support can be hugely beneficial. So who is Heather? I'm now going to move my thing over again now. So Heather is one of our entrepreneurs in residence, and she's a fairly accomplished individual, so I'm not going to run through all of her accomplishments in case I ruin her story, but she is the director of Harry's Coffee, which is a Sussex based, I think, over in Chichester, but she's also created business networks for people, supporting people. She's won various awards, and I think she's tried various things throughout the course of her life. But she's one of our entrepreneurs in residence. She's one of our kind of more exciting speakers, someone who's got quite a lot of depth and personality. And I think, again, that's really important when you're looking at trying to engage and utilize people and understand how you use that as an individual. So I'm not going to say much more other than to turn my microphone off and say over to you, Heather.
Fantastic, Peter. Thank you very excuse me, thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to say to everybody, I had COVID last week, so if my voice starts to sound a bit weird, that'll be why. But I shall endeavour to not give in to the I'm absolutely exhausted half the time. But so it's fantastic to be here. I'm just, in terms of that intro, thank you very much for that, Peter. Yes, I shall try and live up to my bidding of being the most exciting. But also just in terms of the focus of those 4 key points that Peter mentioned, I'm going to talk more about the networking collaboration side of things, and hopefully some of the ideas that I'm going to share with you will enable you to sort of do more around that, sort of taking initiatives and engaging with people. So as I say, that is a little bit more of my emphasis, but let's go from there. I'm very happy for you to ask questions in the chat. If I miss something, Alec or Peter, please just say if there's a question at the time. I don't mind being interrupted, but there will be Q&A afterwards. So I'm so excellent. So as Peter said, now I have no idea where any of you are on your entrepreneurial journeys. You could have had some ideas already. You could already have an enterprise that you're up and running with. You could be, I'm nowhere near even thinking about it. So, I mean, hopefully, given that you're on the enterprise program, this is part of the world and where you sort of see things going. So I will just give a little bit of my my backstory. As I say, for me, the infinite value of networking and collaboration, because it absolutely underpins everything that I've sort of done in my entrepreneurial journey. There's a couple of little bits of social as to where you might find me, but I'm absolutely useless at social. The best place to find me is LinkedIn. If you want to ask me anything, please feel free to reach out. More than happy to have a chat with any of you. So a quick little bit about my story. It is a many and varied thing, but just in brief, the eggs across there on the left, I had my first business when I was 5. Started with my sister. It was called J&H Chickens. And my father, bless him, paid for the chickens, paid for the feed, paid for the guy who helped us look after the chickens. And then we sold the eggs back to my mum. And that was how we made our pocket money. So it was very much a case of basically dad paid twice for the eggs, but it sparked the entrepreneurial ideas. I grew up in Africa. Love giraffe, who doesn't? But then sort of as soon as I finished university, I came back to Europe. I am very much a European, Northern Hemisphere kind of gal. The little heart there, I was born with a major heart defect. Shouldn't have survived, but I think my overall joie de vivre comes from the fact that I did survive despite every odd thrown at me. And I think that continues to drive how I go at life and tend to kind of just embrace things for all that they're worth. And everybody has a story of what we have overcome. We have all overcome challenges in our lives, and everybody's story will be different. No person's story is more or less valuable, but it also for a lot of us, and it's to embrace that, because that is part of who we are and how we operate in the world. So hear your story and try and understand how it frames how you behave and how you work. But I did accountancy. It is so not my thing, but it was great grounding. And I worked at that for about 20 years. But then about 15 years ago, I got into the wonderful world of coffee. I have a mobile coffee bar. I still run that. It's a bit of a hobby. Got very dented by COVID, as you can imagine. And I have my own brand of coffee, which I'm director. Again, it has taken a little bit of a backseat, but that's just, COVID has thrown up new opportunities and awful side of things too. So it's to find the opportunities and what works for me. Very randomly, I have run for Parliament twice. I'm a Master of Ceremonies, and obviously I'm here as entrepreneur in residence at the university. So my career, as Peter said, is very, very varied. But to then sort of just take that forwards, none of that would have been possible without the whole concept of networking and collaboration. So for me, it is absolutely hugely important. And just a little number for you to just think about. A lot of people, as I say, I don't know what your experience is of networking. For some people, it's terrifying. For some people, it's like, this is easy. So for me, if for some people, it's just like, I've got to go in there, I've got to sell, I've got to know what I'm doing, I've got to know everything, I've got to be perfect. It's like, no. And I'll sort of show you through a little sort of a bit of a step as to what this networking idea is all about, is that for me, 95% of my business has come as a result of networking. It's because of the network of people that I have. But only 5% of that business will have been done with the people I meet in the room. But for those of you who know me, like Pat has just gone, where are your hats? I am very well known for my hats. You can see it's in all of my logos. There's a hat. I'm not outdoors. And so I wasn't wearing one, but it is something I am known for. So again, I have a bit of a networking persona. Everybody knows when I walk in a room, people know what I'm about. So be known for something. That's just one quick little hint. But as I say, 95% of that business has been done, not with the people in the room. It's where 95% of my business comes from networking, but it's not with the people in the room. It's the people that they know. So when I talk to you a bit more about networking collaboration, it's about listening. It's about helping others as well as doing sales, but actually networking and sales are about as far removed from each other as it's possible to be. So just bear that one in mind. As I say, I want to talk first about what a collaboration is. And I just found a couple of definitions here. I do like a good definition, but collaboration, act of working with someone to produce something. Pure and simple. There is the flip side of that, the sort of the dark side, as it were, which is the traitor's cooperation with an enemy, the collaborators. But we're going to focus on that first one. So I've expanded that a little bit to give you my definition. So the action or process of two or more entities working together to complete a task, to produce something, to enhance each other's offer, to achieve a common goal. So the whole idea of working with people, and you will have done this in your university careers, you will have worked on projects with each other, and the whole idea is about working together. And you'll know that there are situations where you don't necessarily get on with the person or whatever it might be, and sometimes it makes it harder. But it's as you move forward and you get choice in the people that you work with, this is about something that's shared, that you are doing together. But of course, you have to know those people, you have to have met those people, and there needs to be a few other little elements in that to make a great collaboration. And one thing I'd like to start with, and I think this is super, super valuable in everything that you do in business and indeed in life, is to understand your values. And I'd like you, if you'd like to, just in the chat, just put in a couple of ideas of what you think around your values. These are your standards of behavior. This is what you believe, and this is core to who you are as a person. So, as I say, I'm in politics, I'm Green Party, everybody knows that. So for me, it's about fairness and equality and about looking after people and planet. So these are some of my core values. So when anything that I'm doing, so whether it's the business that I'm building or the people that I want to work with, both as clients and as suppliers, and in a collaboration, those people that I'm working with, they need to have a shared value system for me, because it means there's that common goal is just so much easier. But also, hell, it makes it so much easier to work with people, because if you have those shared values, it makes it so much easier. Authenticity, integrity, dependability, these are wonderful, wonderful words. So what I want you to start doing, honesty, kindness, absolutely wonderful. And I think these are the sorts of words, and it's an exercise you can just do, as I say, and this is a life skill. And just these are the people that you want to have in your world and in your corner. I want somebody who's dependable and honest and kind, has integrity. Those are the people that I want to work with. And if those are your values, work with people who share those values. So I'm just watching my little timer here on the left, if I look across to the left there. Okay, so that's just, for me, is just one of those little underpinning things. So I love a Venn diagram, me. So there are certain things in life that, in terms of, and these are things that you will come to again and again and again throughout your entrepreneurial journey. And some people go, oh, I've worked on my pitch, or I know what my vision is or my mission. And these are things, all organizations who are on top of their game, they continue to look at these. Do we know where we're going? Do we know how we're going to get there? Are we communicating that? Do you know yourself? And are you communicating it to people that you work with, or to your team, or to your clients? Because again, if you understand these things, it makes it so much easier to create marketing, to have conversations with people, to attract the right team, to attract people you want to work with. So if you understand, as I say, we've talked about your values, your mindset, that will inform your mindset and how you like to work. Vision and mission, I'm sure at some point you've covered this. It's the sort of thing that people cover again and again. They often get confused. I did hear a nice little analogy recently about NASA. So NASA's vision, I've never actually read it, but it is about space exploration. It's about boldly going. It's about, sort of going beyond the boundaries that we know. It's about understanding science. It's about learning, etc. But the mission will be, let's get to the moon. So it's like, for me, what the vision is what the world will look like when we've worked with the world. So what impact are we going to have? The mission is more about how we get there. As I say, these are things that are constantly going. If you haven't started your business yet, these are things to just make some notes and remember that these are the things you can keep coming back to. And again, if you understand all of those things and you get to understand your market, you get to know who your audience is. Again, yes, it really helps if you have a shared value. It's a lot easier to communicate, work with, or sell to someone who has a similar value structure. The more you understand them yourself, the more you can get it out there. So coming back to this very simple thing of building a network, and we're all part of networks already. So you have people who you've gone to school with, people you went to university with, you've got family, people where you live, people if you do a part-time job. So we are all part of lots of different networks. But as you start to do that official I'm going networking thing, there's a few little key things to think about when you go in. As I say, the first one is you're not walking into that room to go and sell, buy my stuff. It's just rude. Nobody wants to be sold to as you walk through the door. You don't walk into a bar and kind of announce yourself to the world, go out with me, I'm awesome. Well, you could do, I don't know. Depends how bold you are. But yeah, this is all about relationships. All of the stuff we're talking today is about the relationships that we build and those networks. And as I say, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen, ask questions, find out about what other people are doing, find out how you can help other people, because the more you can benefit other people, people remember that. What's it that they don't remember how they made you, they can't remember that. Anyway, it's how you make people feel. People always remember how they felt having worked with you. And in terms of just the networking, just share your value, show how you can contribute to their world. Because as you move up this little ladder, that collaboration thing suddenly becomes like, oh, Helen was really good at whatever. Peter's really, really brilliant at that. So building that network. I am one of the entrepreneurs in residence because Pat and I got into a conversation ages ago. And then the opportunity sort of came about. And all of these things have come as a result of that. And this has now ended up in this lovely collaboration. So that networking is the start. It's that fundamental thing. Make those connections, see how you can help somebody, make the connection, follow up. Fortune is in the follow-up. So make those connections. LinkedIn is a brilliant time to be developing your LinkedIn profile. Yes, there's obviously other social networks, but in terms of your professional and your entrepreneurial journey, the LinkedIn is absolutely key. And start building that. Start making those connections, reaching out to people, and just make a connection. But also don't do that. Oh, it looks like we've got 17 people in common. I thought I'd get in touch. Have a reason to get in touch with somebody. Okay, and gradually, as you build those connections, more of these tribes. I'm not a great fan of the word tribe because for me it feels a bit, us and them, which I don't like. But it is about that thing. It's very much a word at the moment, and it is about being part of something. And as I said earlier, we are part of all sorts of different tribes, and they will intersect and interact with each other. And as you then develop, those opportunities to collaborate will start to emerge. As I say, the more work you've done in the bottom part of this little sort of hierarchy, the more you've done to build those networks, to grow those interactions, to give value and to show your worth, the easier it is, the more likely people are to reach out to you to collaborate. But also, along the way, you've also been gathering an awesome group of people and an amazing network, so that when you kind of go, oh, I really want to do something, oh, that would be amazing. So we're working on a project at the moment. And the fantastic thing is we've got an amazing project, but for us to go out and start marketing, with sort of no budget that we've decided we're doing on no budget, to do that on no budget. And how do we get what we're doing, which is amazing, out to a huge group of people? Because otherwise we're doing it one-to-one. And that'll take forever. And within a week, I've sort of chosen 3 particular people within my network who already talk to my ideal markets. I know who my market is. I know the value that I add. And they're already talking to those people. We do something very different for those same people. But I've gone to them and said, how about doing a collaboration? This is what we have to offer. You're already talking to those people. We could offer that thing that we do to your members. And we sort of worked out a financial arrangement, and they're absolutely delighted. So I've got 3 people, all of whom have got 200 people in their client networks. So suddenly 3 phone calls and I have access to 500-600 people. Yeah, that's never going to happen in any other way. But I can do that because of the network that I have, because of that tribe of amazing people who are delivering something similar to me. And so for me, collaboration is absolutely key. Now, what I want to do is I want to bring these 2 things together. And hopefully you can see that whole screen. Because hopefully what you can see is that if you have an understanding of who your audience is, yeah, if you know where you're going, if you know how you're going to get there, and if you understand your values and the values of the people that you like to work with, then building that network, you're starting to look. So every conversation you have, if that conversation is underpinned by knowing your story, knowing where you're going, etc. And as I say, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a concrete idea of what your business looks like. You can still have conversations. And the great thing about this is that you can talk to people about sort of concepts or ideas or your values or those sorts of things. So you can have conversations with people without knowing exactly what your business is. And you can still build that network because you're building it on other things rather than just, I sell widgets and are you interested in the widgets? That's why I say this is where it takes it completely away from the thing that you sell and from selling. And it becomes about you as a person and you as an entrepreneur and you as a person who walks around in this wonderful world of ours and the difference that you can make, the impact that you can have. So for me, these 2 really, they all need to kind of interact and intertwine with each other. And as I say, if you understand these greater things about you and the difference that you want to make in the world and how you want to be involved with it, then all these interactions that you make with people, and as you build, it just means that these are so much easier. And that you can interact with somebody at X point in your life. And I think the longest lead I had was somebody that I spoke to years ago, and we had a total passion about coffee. We had a total passion about the power of coffee for people to connect and talk to each other. And it was a great space for people to stop. And we know that in terms of, loneliness and creativity and connectivity, people need to stop and talk. And we really noticed that over the last couple of years. So in terms of that, and honestly, she came to me, we first had the conversation about 15, 16 years ago. And she came to me a couple of years ago and she said, "You still doing that coffee thing?" And I went, "Yeah." She said, "Yeah." She said, she said, "I'm opening up a healing center and I want to have a little cafe." And I've always remembered that conversation that we had about the power of coffee and that power to connect. And so it was my mission in the world that people connect over great coffee. I knew the audience as people who liked to take that time out. She understands my values, it's fair trade and all of those things. And all of those things just sat in the back of her mind. And at some point in time, as her business changed, she just picked up the phone and said, "Can we do a project together?" And there we were. So you never know where a conversation is going to go. But as I say, just keep in mind all of this wonderful sort of interaction of thoughts and ideas. So as I hope you've seen that, it's never too early for these things for you to start thinking about how you might bring these things into your world. Yeah, hopefully in some of the stuff that you've done at uni and on this program particularly, you will have started to understand where it is that you might be going and that you need to start thinking about these things. And what I want to do now, as I say, I when I did my timing, I thought my half hour included the Q&A. But I actually do want to sort of open up, and I want to do a little values exercise with you. So I'm just going to quickly check into the chat. Yes, fortune is indeed in the follow-up. So what I would like to do, are we able to sort of do a quick breakout room situation? She said, asking.
We can if you want to, Heather. Yeah, that's not an issue.
Yeah. So, and we've got a couple of people in the room as well. So what I would love you to do, so just very quickly, she said, just searching for my quick note that I made here the other day, which I've now lost. Oh, well, excuse me, 2 seconds. Right, I would love you to do an exercise around values, because I say for me, that's where this all starts. So we're going to go into breakout rooms of 2, if we can, please.
Breakout rooms of how many, sorry?
Of 2. Actually, no, let's do 3. And in the room, just go into 2s or 3s, whichever is convenient. And
36 people online.
Whatever social distancing safe is.
Hang on. Right, so let's just figure out how we're going to do this. Huh? So what? Yeah, we'll I'll create them and assign people online. But do you want to say any more before I do that? Because that'll
yeah. So right. So just to give you the exercise. So what I would like you to do in your pairs or 3s is just write down. So some of the ideas that might have come up in the chat, or some of the things that I've mentioned, is that your 3 key values in life. This is not a definitive answer. There might be other things that will come to mind. And I just want you to chat amongst yourselves. We're just going to do this for about 5 minutes. But what I would like to do is, even if on there might be 3 seemingly quite different values, say, yes, you have a shared value system, but it's like, how could you work together with someone? So it's, so basically saying how important those things are to you, and just see how the 3 things are completely different, and to see how, in understanding those things about each other, that you can then work with that person. Yeah, does that make sense? So list 3 key values, see the differences that you kind of come up with, and see how easy it would be to work together, given that they might sound slightly different, but can you still work with that person in a collaborative sort of sense? That's all right. The rabble in the room.
The rabble in the room. Right, crack on, go for it.
Excellent. Well, we obviously heard lots of discussion going on in the room, but obviously couldn't be eavesdropping in what was going on in the breakout. So I hope there was some good conversation and connection going on in those breakout rooms. So is there anybody who's bold enough and communicative enough who would like to just give a little bit of feedback as to how that was, to hopefully come up with each with different values, and to see how you could work together with somebody who has different values to yours? Who wants to boldly put their hand up?
I'm a group 10. We were online. We were talking about our values. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about our values, and both our businesses are quite different. Mine involves people, and the lady in our group, which I can't remember his name, so I do apologise, has got a hotel for dogs, and we picked out sort of honest, reliability, approachable, and some other ones. But they all sort of, even our businesses are quite far apart, they're actually all similar values that we run with, if you know what I mean, which is what we found quite interesting. If we've got a part of on the different sides of the spectrum, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think literally that's a brilliant example, John, thank you, is that, as you say, you are in completely different sectors, but you still have that shared value system. So It could be at some point in the future, who knows, you never know where things could go, but because you have those shared values, different things in other ways, but you could still work with people because you have that shared.
We both felt that we could probably work in similar environments because of the needs that you would have with the people and with animals and the feelings, and it really links up really well. So it was quite a good session actually to discuss that. Yeah, we really enjoyed it.
Great exercise. Thanks for that feedback. Pat, you've got your hand up, lovely.
Yes, I think it was in the semantics as well, Heather. But there was 3 of us in the room, me, not obviously set up a business, and 2 participants of our course. And it's looking at the words, but then trying to find the right word to fit what you're describing as your value as well, and to hone in onto that. And in the end, all 3 of us agreed with the fairness and authenticity, and then being creative and having an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
and humility, respecting each other as well was another, respect. But in the end, the conversation was that making a difference as well came out. So collectively to make a difference. And in the end, we all agreed we could work with each other, either as a 3 or 2 and 2. And we're going to set up a business together, Heather, and we're going to conquer the world.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And I think you hit on a very valid point there, Pat, is that sort of hearing others, because there could also be things where you're not quite the same. But there's that thing, and I have to say, I'm just going to talk politics for just a second. One of the most awful things ever spoken by a politician was George Bush, when he said, "You're with us or you're against us." And for me, that is just awful. It's hideous. It's divisive, because actually, although we might have differences of opinion, but somehow it's about having those conversations and finding that common ground and how you can talk to each other. And I think those are also very, very valuable things. So you might not quite be able to work together for whatever reason, and your values might be slightly different, but it doesn't invalidate somebody else's values. And it is about having those conversations and that sort of, and seeing where you can find the common ground where you can work together, let's say, because otherwise we'd all be some homogenous blob and all identical, and that would make a very, very, very boring world. But it is about being open and having that honesty and that integrity to hear somebody else and to listen. But as you say, between you, there were lots of differences, but you ended up finding that lovely sort of space of common ground in the middle. Anybody else want to share what they did in the group? Is there anybody in the room wants to share anything? Peter's got the microphone.
Yeah, I'm doing my my Annika Rice.
Roving reporter.
Yeah. There we go.
Hi there.
Hey.
Hi, my 3 values were integrity, respect, and focus. I think I've come across several times where I've been working with people where they haven't necessarily been respectful, and I think that tends to impact my relationship with them. And but I don't really have much more to say other than to share those. I'm not sure what to add.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And as you say, you've just highlighted that, is you have come across people who don't necessarily have that respect, for example, as a value, and you will notice how that will have an impact on how that relationship might move forward. As I say, it doesn't, it is about, as I say, it's about you also having respect for yourself and about what your values are. And if those are, genuinely important to you, and which hopefully they are, because they underpin so much of what goes on in life, then you must hear that and you must value that. And it's like, I want to work with people who share these ones. And as I say, as you move through life, some will sort of rise and fall in importance, but actually there are those really fundamental underpinning values that really do guide what it is that we do in the world. Anybody else got anything that we want to do before we sort of wrap up here?
Can I just add something?
Yes.
It's interesting that everyone has gone for very virtuous words, so like authenticity, trustworthiness, kindness. And it's interesting because when you were talking, I wrote down mine, and I just wrote be a person. And the reason why I wrote that is because I can't always be trustworthy, I can't always be kind, and I can't always be authentic. I will strive for that, but I'm going to have moments of weakness. But if you can just be a person, I always think in life, but that's kind of my value, which is treat people.
Absolutely. There is that slight sort of air of sort of aspiration, and of course we would all love to be these amazing, perfect, wondrous human beings, which of course we all are. But yes, when it doesn't work out that way, it doesn't have to be the downfall of life either. And very much, yes, none of us is perfect in all of this. So hopefully that has provoked some understanding in terms of you, in terms of how you now start to present yourself, your ideas. As I say, really, none of this has an impact. Is impacted by where you are on your entrepreneurial journey, because all of these things are sort of key fundamental things in terms of how you connect and grow in the world. And this, networking and thing is an ongoing process. My business partner, who is a wonderful human being, is up in Yorkshire. We were introduced because of a conversation that I had with somebody. I mean, it's like 6 degrees of separation as to how we got introduced. And it is the most amazing business partnership. But that none of these relationships would have happened had it not been for building the network, being as authentic as I can be in any one moment, being true to my values, sharing. All of these things are an ongoing process. So I do implore that you start this as part of your journey now as entrepreneurs, and take this forward into the world. And I now believe that we do, there's my LinkedIn profile if anybody wants to, there's me in a hat, of course, on my LinkedIn profile. The only other Heather Barrie who's famous enough is an ornithologist in New Zealand, and that's not me, obviously. And yeah, so any questions for everybody? And I'm going to stop sharing now because that's enough of my little face. So yeah, anybody got any other questions that they would
like? As we always tend to do, I say to people, if you want to put them in the chat or if you want to raise your hand, and while people in the room and online are having a think about that, I might ask Heather a few to give a bit of cloud cover. And the one that I really wanted to ask Heather was, can you give us an example of a valuable collaboration and just briefly tell us the story of how you got up the pyramid?
So in fact, I will use my connection with Richard, who my business partner. So Richard, so I was on a course, an entrepreneurial course about 6 or 7 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. And then when I was doing, I was working particularly in my coffee business, and I was pursuing this whole idea of what in Sweden they call fika, which is coffee, cake, and conversation. And I was looking at the whole idea. So bearing in mind, 7, 8 years ago, long before COVID, long before anybody knew what Zoom was. And I was talking about how people could connect better at work, have better discussions, be more creative, and better mental health because they are talking to each other, they're taking time out. It's an intrinsic part of the day. And I was chatting to some bloke on a course that came as a result of the original course, bear with, in Portsmouth. And we got chatting, and I just said, and I explained this thing about remote working and connecting people. He said, you need to speak to Richard. So I phoned Richard. Richard worked for Shell at the time, and he worked on their project, literally helping remote teams connect better with each other. And I just said, listen, how's this for an idea? Let's do a thing that we can sort of send coffee to people, etc. And the conversation started there. As I said, this is long before COVID. Anyway, fast forward several years, but it was in terms of how we connected. We had a shared value. We'd met through 2, 3 sort of degrees of separation. That person I had a good connection with, but because he understands me and because he understands Richard, so he knew both of us quite well, as soon as he heard my idea, it was an automatic reaction. Fast forward, various conversations Richard and I have had about various things. And as we went into lockdown, I just phoned Richard and I said, you know, those various ideas we've been talking about, time to start a business. And we started our business within a week of lockdown, and we're still going, and we're going strong. So yeah, it was very much, it's about the conversations I had. It was about being authentic at the time.
Okay, there's a couple of questions in the chat. So Darius has asked, how do you find trustworthy people at the start of your business to be able to help and collaborate?
I think, Darius, it's some of it is about how you meet them, the context in which you meet them. I think it's about having open and honest conversations. It's about trusting yourself as well. Yeah, if in doubt, trust your gut. The gut's a jolly good thing. It kind of knows somehow. And I think we were talking about this the other day in terms of, finding an accountant, for example, or, those sorts of people, those people who you need to have as trusted advisors. And I think that is very much, again, coming back to perhaps networks that you're already part of, through family or through the university, for example. These are your existing networks, and reaching out and asking people, finding out what sort of questions should I ask this person to find out if they're the right fit for me? Is this somebody you have worked for? Yeah, and as I say, trusting your gut. Does that give you a good enough answer? As I say, and you will, and guarantee you're not going to get it right all of the time. We've all had people where you've kind of gone, that wasn't great, and I, hands up, I've had a few. They don't always go brilliantly.
I've always found in these sorts of things, they're a bit like relationships. After a while, you learn that when it feels bad at the beginning, you should probably end it there and then, but you wait too long and then it's more awkward. So if there's something tingling in the back of your brain, it's time to
it's time to listen to the hairs on the back of your chest, neck. That's the one.
Where have you got them?
Right, what else we got here?
Katie
right, how do you do it soon enough to just
collaborate?
Yeah. So, Katie, yeah. So obviously due diligence, absolutely key. Depends on the nature of the collaboration. I think somehow in some ways it almost feels like during lockdown and with us getting to sort of know people almost instantly through Zoom, you kind of feel like you've known this person for years because you've seen them on Zoom for 4.5 minutes. And somehow there's an implicit trust in a way. And I've a couple of times I've had to kind of go, ooh, if I just met this person in person, would I be going down this path with them? Because I don't really know them. So I think that, again, it's as I say, without getting too boring, due diligence, I think it's a little bit, there's a balance. It depends on the collaboration that you're getting into. If you are, if it's big and complex and all the rest of it, yeah, you get your lawyers and you do your due diligence, you absolutely go for it. And I think also maybe there's just a sort of a mental check on yourself, is that if this went pear-shaped, what is the impact on me? Get a bit selfish about it. If this goes wrong, and this is, and I think this is a little bit where it comes to that shared values. If these are people that you believe to work with honesty, integrity, and all the rest of it, could I work with them? Will they look after my clients in the same way that I look after my clients? Because for me, I don't want to let my clients down. I don't want my clients to be let down by bringing in somebody who's a bit of a, who's out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of a balance of risk and time, and see what the impact is really important.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to check one in that I'm going to assume from the room based on having been with them for the last 5 or 6 modules, which is that let's assume that you've gone to a networking session or you're online and you're networking and everything else. How does Heather Barrie get noticed other than the hat?
I've known to be quite. I do really random things in networking events. I always wear a hat. When I'm in person, absolutely always. During lockdown, obviously couldn't wear the hat, couldn't use my arms in quite the same way. One of the things I started doing was I started writing poetry, like really random poems about my business. So I like a good limerick. So that's a bit random, 5 lines, and if you write three verses of five rhymes, it's round about a minute. And the thing is there's a couple of things you can do, because you've probably all sat in networking on Zoom and you get to the 3rd person and you go, who are you? I can't remember persons 1 and 2. No idea what they do. Can't remember what their names are. It's the 17th person who does web design. You're bored. Let's face it. I'm just being very honest here because I've done a lot of networking in the last 2 years. So stand out. You've got to stand out. There's a couple of ways of doing it. As I say, doing something random, like a poem, sing, sit there in silence for 10 seconds, just stare at the screen and go, are you on mute? No, I'm not on mute. And, be memorable. But you could also, the other thing is that immediately, one of the things is that little question of, how. So what you want is that the people that you serve, or the problem that the people have that you serve in terms of what your business is, the result, the solution that you deliver, you want anybody in the room who might be your potential client to immediately go, yeah, that's me. So how you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, think about how you're going to pay the mortgage each month. Well, what we do is provide a 5-step program to really sort out your finances, with the result that you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning worrying about your money. Okay, there we go. I just did a pitch. So, but it's that little hook. Or did you know that 38% of people in the world wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning worrying about money? Well, what we do. So you need a little hooky, little something that gets people thinking. If I walk in and go, hi, my name's Heather Barrie and I do coffee. You know, you're just fast asleep in about 3 seconds and nobody will remember. So be random. And I know for some people, yeah, I'm gobby, you know, but I never used to be. This is I've worked at it. I fully embrace it now. I was just saying to Peter last night, I started doing an improv course. So I'm doing improv comedy now. And so for some people, it's really hard, but find a way that works for you. And again, with those values, with that, your personality, find a thing that works for you where you know you can be memorable. And you won't be memorable every time, even if you're memorable for, you know, for cocking it up, you know, like be memorable for something. Get your words wrong. Have fun with it. And that's the thing. If you have fun, again, it's what we were talking about in the chat, that empathy thing, people remember how they felt. If at the end of that minute, they have laughed or they have kind of got it, it's like, oh, Heather gets what's going on in my world at the moment. She understands the problem that I've got. I want to talk with her. And at the end of it is give them a little something to do. So that idea of the call to action, don't make it complicated. Just go, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to have a chat. Because you don't necessarily want to chat with everybody in the room. Just, yeah, bear that in mind. The follow-up, you might have 117 people contact you. You don't want to speak to all of them. So give them a reason to thing, or, yeah, so be memorable. That's my very long way of saying be memorable.
I had a colleague at the beginning of lockdown, Heather, who used to do a little caricature of the meeting in stickman kind of form, and then take a photo of it and send it to everyone in the meeting afterwards and say, "This is what I thought," and it just makes me remember him.
Yeah,
and they were never rude, they were nice or anything else. But and on one occasion, he actually got one of his children while the meeting was on to do their own picture, and he took a picture of it and shared it afterwards. But you always remember that person for that little moment.
I have a glove puppet of a pug called Gizmo. And Gizmo comes to networking with me because, you know, who the hell arrives at a networking event with a glove puppet called Gizmo? Yeah, nobody does that. The thing is, though, is that you then have to keep doing it because they're gonna want to see what you do next time. So it does make you up your game on a regular basis, which is good. Keep being challenged.
Is there anyone in the room?
Oh, great name, Kaylee.
Hang on. Oh, there's a question in the room. Hang on. Chihuahua is called Gizmo.
Yeah, but does the Chihuahua like getting wet?
Hello.
Hiya.
Hi. So my question was, what would be like the first few steps of to like increase your network?
So I think one of the great things that has come out of thanks, great question. So one of the great things that has come out of COVID, because we've got to look for some positives somewhere on the line, is that there are a lot of free networks. I know even within the university, there's some stuff, and there's some collaboration with Portsmouth City as well. But AWE with God, her name's just gone out of my head completely. Amy, with Amy. Amy Doyle. So there is a lot of stuff that already happens at the university. There's big networking, etc. But even sometimes just practice it. Get a group of you together and have a little practice session. Like, look, let's just do a pitch to each other and see, and give constructive feedback. Be empathetic. We like empathy. Be empathetic. Give some feedback. Do I know there's a really lovely little acronym. Do you like an acronym? SPAM. We've all heard of SPAM. SPAM is horrible, but SPAM is, what's your solution to a problem that you know exists, that your ideal audience is having, and then you get your messaging right. Yeah, SPAM. So solution, problem, audience, messaging. And if you can start looking at that, your audience, I mean, there's loads, you can go into those for hours. We do workshops on those sorts of things. So audience is that whole avatar, who's your ideal customer? And please don't say 35-year-old women who live in Hove who like exercise. Says absolutely nothing. what's the life, what is the experience day to day of the person you would love to, whose problem you would love to solve, or the organization. So it's that whole kind of thing around the audience. But if you can start to look at including in your pitch those elements of spam, that's a really, really good thing to do. But yeah, get together with a small group. As I say, there are free networks. There are free networks online. There are also some relatively inexpensive ones. There's one, and I'll just put it out there because it's a mate of mine. It's called Peppercorn. You can go once for free. Otherwise, it's like £10 a month. And he does 2 sessions every week. And it is speed networking. And the first time you go, you think you've been hit by a spade, because it is just very alarming. Even I, as a very seasoned networker, was just like, what have I done? This is insane. After about 4 times, 4 minutes in, out, next 4 minutes in, out. And it is just ridiculous. But it really gets you to practice your pitch. It really gets you to listen to the other person. And it really gets you to ask what you want that person to do. For me personally, it's too much selling. It's too much, I've got to say my thing, and I want the person who's in the room, he's going to buy it from me, and you come out like this complete, crazy thing going on. But sometimes it's good to practice like that. It's kind of like get in at the deep end, and you could do in that time, you do 10 completely different pitches and go, well, which one landed? Ask for feedback from the person you talk to. It's always that thing of getting feedback, especially as you start out on this journey. But yeah, there's loads of free stuff as well. And most networking, even if it's an organization that charges, you can go, you didn't hear this from me, but you can go for free. So pick quite a few and go along for free and give it a whirl. And also, and just one thing is that even if your business is not yet a thing, even if it's not yet a thing, or your full business idea is not yet formed, go along. I was at something recently. I was a young man in he was sort of dialing in from I think it was Uganda, and I was networking in Wales, because you can do this internationally now, can't you? And he was just starting out. He was trying to decide how he was going to do things. He was doing IT support. Of course, it's hugely cheaper for him to do it with his team in Uganda than it is to have a UK-based thing. And he was just putting out some feelers to see if this is something that people would be interested in. So he didn't have a fully formed business set up in, the UK with a, bank account and all the rest of it. Yes, he was legitimate, because the people who invited him in had done their due diligence and so on. We find out that he was, but he was just trying things out. And in fact, he has joined the organization, and he's been absolutely fantastic. And he's a delightful young man, and he's got an awesome business. So give it a whirl. That's my thing.
Thank you very much, Heather. That's been a brilliant Q&A and a brilliant talk. And I think everyone in the room's got something from it. I think that idea of going to networking is a brilliant one, because actually, from my experience, people are more likely to help you when you're pre-business idea, because it almost feels like a bit of CSR at networking than they are when you're in sales mode. So it's a great idea to go and take
and it's them practicing what they preach in terms of collaborating and giving and paying it forwards. If they are prepared to help you, and again, that helps you build your network. You go, oh, that person was, I remember so-and-so, I remember Katie, Pat, Heather, whatever, Peter, they were really helpful. And then they're the sort of people who become part of your wider network. But we also understand about you, because we all, as people who've been around, in the nicest possible way, being around for a whole lot longer, could kind of go, you really need to speak to so-and-so, exactly like my mate did, and said, you need to speak to Richard. And look where that went. So the better you can tell your story, and you only learn about your story the more you practice.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very, very much.